Hello everyone, Drew here, and today I've got another one of what I consider to be one of the really classic breakfast cereals, and that is Captain Crunch. And it is Captain Crunch. I always called it Captain Crunch, but I guess, I wasn't trying to read too much. Um, so, yeah, before we dive into this one, since it is one of the classics, I do want to talk about it for a little bit. Um, Starting with something that I didn't know about Captain Crunch, which is that it is not by one of the big three cereal brands. Captain Crunch comes to us from Quaker Oats, which I guess explains the design on the Captain. Um, but yeah, so Captain Crunch first came out in 1963. I'll double check on this one. Yeah. So the flavor was developed by someone named Arthur Little, and she was trying to recreate a flavor that her grandma made with a recipe of brown sugar and butter over rice. And so she came up with like a flavoring syrup, which became the delivery method for the flavoring for Captain Crunch, and that is what makes Captain Crunch unique. Is she came up with a method for baking it was essentially flavored oil into Captain Crunch or into cereal pieces, and Quaker Oats was really into this, so they made a cereal around it, which they called Captain Crunch, and they released that the same year that she developed the flavor in 1963. They actually, even though it was released the same year, they did have a lot of trouble in the production process because it was the first time mass producing a cereal where the flavor delivery system was liquid rather than putting a coating on the cereal like a powder. They had flavored oil that they were baking into the cereal, and Arthur D. Little was able to do this on a small scale, cooking in her own oven, but yeah, there were several months of production issues in terms of getting it to bake into dry cereal. But since then, that is now their method of delivery for, I think, all the sweetened cereals they make. But I don't know of any other cereals that do that. It's pretty common to see frosted cereals or sugar coated cereals. But Captain Crunch was the first one to have flavor, baked directly into the cereal. So Captain Crunch became the flagship cereal for Quaker Oats. Like I said, it's not by one of the big three. So this was their main brand of, cereal to eat with milk for a long time. But what I didn't know about Captain Crunch, well, I did know that Captain Crunch has a fair share of varieties. Full disclosure, I do consider this a classic, obviously, but it's not one that I always jumped for at the shelf as a kid. I thought it was kind of boring. But I did always love the Crunch Berries, which is essentially the same thing, but with also some round pieces. And then my sister was really huge on the peanut butter cereal, the Captain Crunch peanut butter spheres. So that was almost always in our pantry as well. And that's kind of what part of what makes Captain Crunch a classic for me is that everyone knows the classic Captain Crunch, and I've had my fair share of the original. I mean, I've been around. I've played Captain Crunch's Crunchling Adventure, so I know my way around a box of Captain Crunch. But they just also had so many varieties that I felt like Captain Crunch was always in the house, whether it was the original or the Crunch Berries or the peanut butter, or I also liked the one where it was just all berries. And actually looking into it a little bit, I realized that they have tons of variations, and most of them I'd never heard of. I'm looking at a list right now just to go through some of the other ones that I never ran into. In addition to peanut butter, they had Vanilla Crunch, Punch Crunch, Cinnamon Crunch, Choco Crunch, Chocolatey Crunch, Christmas Crunch, Deep Sea Crunch, Halloween Crunch, Galactic Crunch, Donuts, Home Run Crunch, Neutron Berries, Rugrats Go Wild, Mystery Volcano Crunch, Smashed Berries, Cosmic Crunch, Polar Crunch, and that's like half the list. So there have been a lot of varieties of Captain Crunch. I didn't look a ton into this, but my guess on this is that since it is Quaker Oats' flagship cereal into making kids cereal, they just use the Captain Crunch brand for anything they want to try. You know, if you're Post or Kellogg's or General Mills, you make a new cereal and you give it a new name. People are like, sure, they make cereal, let's try it out. You know, I think Quaker Oats is getting their experimentation in by doing it through the Captain Crunch name. Because these are all, you know, whether it's berries or whatever shape you call these pieces, you know, there's a ton of variety of flavors and shapes going on in there. And it seems to be, yeah, that the one unifying factor is Arthur D. Little's flavor delivery system, the baking the oil into the flavored oil into the pieces during the cooking process. So that's enough of a history lesson on Captain Crunch. Let's dig in and see what we think. Try to pour not as much as I did last time. Want to be able to actually finish the bowl. Possible. Set it away for now. Some milk. All right. It is pretty nice. It is, like, it's definitely a super sweet cereal, but since it's not frosted or whatever, the sweetness comes through a little bit lighter. I want to try it right away while it's still hard, so I get that sense. Yeah, and I like the shape of the cereal too. I think some people complain that Captain Crunch is too hard or jagged, like you cut your mouth on it. I mean, part of that, I think they soften the edges of the pieces since I was a kid, but I think you can kind of cut your mouth on anything. With Captain Crunch, what I think the issue is that it's very easy to eat too fast because the shape of the pieces is I can just take a like giant spoonful, and even these weird edge ones, they're not falling over because everything kind of stacks with this shape. So it's easy to just shovel giant bites into your mouth, and you know, I think that's the easiest way to cut your mouth on cereal. Whereas, you know, I don't know, with another jagged edge cereal like Cookie Crisp, that they're these big wide discs and they just flop off the edges, so you don't end up shoveling giant bites into your mouth. So I'll try to take more responsible bites so that I don't do just that. But yeah, I actually like Captain Crunch probably best when it's hard. I'm generally a soggy cereal person, but Captain Crunch has a nice crunch to it. And I think the other part of that is it's just really pathetic once it becomes soggy, and it gets there pretty quick. Flavor-wise, I do like it. You know, it's not like off the charts. It's just sweet. You know, it's a very basic sweetness. It's the same reason I wouldn't make rice with butter and brown sugar. It's just kind of like, why? It's just straight sugar, which I like. You know, this isn't. It's not terrible, but there's just so much more you could do. And the other issue for me is, and it might just be unique to me, but the only ones that come, Captain Crunch, yeah, has kind of an aftertaste that hangs around after I take the bite, and I never really liked that. It's not terrible. I've only really experienced it in cereal with like Captain Crunch and Honey Nut Cheerios off the top of my head, and I really don't like the aftertaste I get from Honey Nut Cheerios. But with Captain Crunch, it's just like It's still sweet, so it's not bad, but it's like I just don't want a super long aftertaste with my cereal. Um, but the flavor is good. It's just bland and a little one note. I like the pieces when they're hard. It gets soggy way too fast for me. Um, it's already starting to become like fairly soggy pieces now. You know, I'm not gonna have to do any pause on this video because the pieces just soak up milk like crazy. Um, yeah, and even the same thing. Well, I know it doesn't really matter that you can end up taking huge bites once it becomes soggy, but it all just becomes kind of a mush, which is not my, you know. I guess it's kind of contradictory for me to say as someone who likes soggy cereal, but I'm not trying to have it as a mush. I still want some consistency to it. Which is right where it's at right now. The outside is all soggy, and then there's still some crunch to the pieces inside. But I've only been eating this bowl for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes, so it's just impressive how quickly it becomes soggy and how boring it is once it gets soggy. Yeah, I will let the rest of it sit so I can see what it's like totally soggy. I'm not going to pause the video. I think really just letting Captain Crunch sit for a minute it's going to become totally soggy in the milk. And I didn't even add too much milk, or at least I don't think too much milk. I want to have something to drink at the end. And I still have that sort of sickly sweet aftertaste. It's not super strong. I think it's just the flavor oil mixing with the milk, but it just, yeah, it just hangs out in my mouth and on my lips. And I'd rather just eat all the flavor all at once. But, you know, if you want the flavor of your cereal to hang out in your mouth long after breakfast, you can consider that a positive. I'll give my final judgment once I try it soggy, but like overall, this is like a 7 out of 10 cereal. Like I'm enjoying myself. There's just a lot more they could do, you know. And there's a lot more they have done. Like I said, they're all the Captain Crunch varieties they've tried with berries, which I prefer. They've tried peanut butter. They've, you know, chocolate and TV promotions and whatever you can think of. They have tried it, so that's not a knock. But in terms of the OG Crunch, it is, yeah, it's fine. It's solid, but it's, you know, their first pass that they came up with in 1963. So, yeah, I think 7 out of 10 for me, but I'm going to reserve my final judgment now that it's been a little over a minute. Let's see what it's like totally soggy. Yeah, I'm not super into that. Because this is the point that all soggy cereal reaches where it just is mush in your mouth. You know, you don't even really feel the crunch anymore. And that becomes fairly disappointing. The flavor's still there, but like, I guess that's the part where it becomes like brown sugar over rice. Once it's a total mush, then I might as well just be eating a bowl of sugar and rice. Which I imagine is pretty good. Yeah, so just, I don't know. Even as someone who likes soggy cereal, so much more disappointing. Soggy. It gets soggy fast, and there's nothing cool about the cereal. Once it gets soggy, it just, you know, goes from being crunchy to a mush. It stops being Captain Crunch. Becomes Captain Mush. Yeah, let's try the milk. The milk is good. It's actually lightly sweetened. It's one of my favorite kind of milks because, I mean, my actual favorite is like either the chocolatey ones or just the like really intensely flavored ones. But the thing that's nice about the Captain Crunch milk is because it's not sweetened with like a sugar or a powder. There's nothing swirling into the milk. It's just whatever that flavoring seeps off of the pieces themselves. So the flavoring is like there's definitely the milk definitely becomes sweeter, but it's not super noticeable that it's just like sugar has been poured into your milk. It almost tastes kind of the same way that whole milk tastes sweet compared to 2% milk, but like even sweeter than that. So that part of the milk is a highlight for me. So yeah, I do enjoy the milk. Overall rating, yeah, I think 7 out of 10 is fair for Captain Crunch when it's crunchy, and then probably like a 5 out of 10 once it gets totally soggy. Alright, that's all I have for you on Captain Crunch. Thanks for joining me with this classics video today. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my channel. I've got a bunch of cereal reviews. And if you want to learn more about what I consider the classic cereals, you can check out my classics series for more videos like this one. Thanks, and until next time.